It's Mo Clark checking in with Upscale Magazine. I am super excited to be talking to Uncle Phil. I'm sorry. Do you get that a lot though? You got
I
to get it
do.
a
I
lot.
do. I mean, hey, when I'm at the airport and I'm going through Uncle Phil, I'll be walking down the aisle and people will be like, Uncle Phil. And I'll be like, they're like, I knew because I'll walk by and I'll see them do that double look, they're like, wait. And then they start talking to who they're with. And they're like, yeah. And then so they just throw out Uncle Phil just to see if I turn around. Yeah. I'm like, hey, how you doing? It's
What is
me.
that actually like for you to walk into such an iconic role?
Special, man. It feels like a gift from God. I mean, it really is a gift from God. It's been ordained. This whole experience, I mean, from top to bottom, it's just been so special. I couldn't have written a better story. Um, I always knew something was in the works. I just didn't know what it would be. It was never a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And I knew that it was just on God's time. I always wanted things to happen quickly, but like we all do, we get a little impatient. We want things to happen now. But I knew God knows the work that we need to do within ourselves to prepare ourselves for these moments. And I knew that I had to make sure that I had all the tools in my toolbox to take on such a, important, responsible character, like Philip Banks. So I'm just grateful that I was in a position to do that.
So, with this new spin on Bel-Air, how did stepping into this role actually challenge you as an actor?
Yeah. Um, just to allow myself to feel and trust and know that, just the stillness. There was a lot of strength in the stillness and the being interested and not interesting,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. Just being really invested in the people around me and thinking about community and being of service. That's what Philip Banks is all about. He's really a leader, a strong leader of purpose. He leads with purpose and he serves with pride. And those are qualities that I was able to really gain from. I learn a lot from him in that way in my day to day. And he's an alpha man. The brotherhood. That's something that those are qualities that I was very fond of, and I was able to life imitating art became an alpha as well this year. So um, yeah, he made me a better person. He really did. This wasn't just a role. This was like a stewardship. It was like a responsibility that I had been given, to lead, to be a shepherd, to be a shepherd to the community for the young men out there in the world who are struggling with identity and just being what does it mean to be a man? What is the definition of a man? You got to be strong. You got to be able to take care of your family, but also there is strength and vulnerability, and that's the one thing that our show really highlights is being able to be open, to have difficult conversations with your loved ones and with yourself, to look yourself in the mirror and say, "Who am I?" and give yourself grace. And we're all flawed, and Philip Banks is as powerful and as successful as he is. He's a flawed man, but that's an accurate representation of the world we live in. We're all flawed, but a lot of times in Hollywood and movies and TV shows, they show these characters that are so kind of perfectly put together. And, it's hard to relate as an
Mhm.
audience to, some characters. You're like, oh, come on, really? Of course, you got everything you ask for, you get everything comes up, like with roses for you and but no, sometimes I get some weeds in the garden too and I got to pull them. It's not always a beautiful garden, and so I think that our writers did such an amazing job of putting these stories together so that the audience could really feel connected and understood and not just being visible, because the visibility is important, and visibility is to be seen, but representation is to be understood. And I think
Yes.
that what we did was really allowed our audience to be understood, the sacrifices that we make to get to where we are. It's not just something that just happens, but we have to go through a lot of obstacles, to get there. And we are able to show that journey, and how we navigated, in our space to get to, for the Banks to become, who they are, and for Philip to become who he is. And just that bond between him and Viv is so beautiful, the radical honesty moments, where you sit and you just talk to each other. And that's
Hmm.
not easy to do, but I'm glad that we put that in there because, a lot of people are like, oh, no way, I'm doing no radical honesty with my wife. No way. But then some people are like, you know what? It can help because a lot of times you don't want to do it because you're afraid of what you're going to hear, you
Right.
know, but your ego, you got to check your ego and just like, you're going to hear some things that aren't going to be easy to hear, you know, but ego, the acronym for ego is edging God out.
Mm.
And we don't want to edge God out, you know. We want to we want to edge God in. We want to bring him into the mix, into every situation. So anyway, I'm going on, but it's been a dream. I don't even know what your question was now. I'm just talking,
Well, you
but it's
you
been a dream come
answered.
true.
I'm sitting here looking at them. You pretty much
I asked
answered
50.
them all right out the gate.
I do that a lot. I
So
do that a lot. People know
I
me. They're like, Adrian
swear
likes to
you have
talk.
I swear you have peeked at my question, but I am super excited. Even though the series is wrapping up, once again, it has made quite an impact. You guys have made quite an impact. So thank you for accepting the challenge of this iconic role because you have now made a new iconic version of this role. And we hate to
Yeah,
see the characters go. It's still
I
something we want
know.
to continue. I've been reading the comments
Yeah.
online, and people are sad to see it wrap up. But I guess we have to stay tuned and see what else happens. So tell
Yeah, well,
everybody, Mr. Adrian, where they can follow you at.
okay, you can follow me at Adrian Holmes on Instagram and Facebook. I'm pretty much I'm mostly on Instagram. That's the way to see me. Yeah, just Adrian Holmes. So,
And thank you so much for
and
accepting the role. You guys have done amazing. And I guess we'll see
thank
where
you.
this goes now.
Next chapter. We'll see you down the road for sure.
Thanks for checking in with Upscale.